Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone. Before we carry on with our sutra class, let us all sit for a few moments of meditation together to set the mind forward for the rest of the class. So if we sit comfortably, taking a deep breath in, settling into the moment, letting go of the past and the future, and being in the here and the now. Noting the senses, moment to moment, as you draw your attention inward to the present, without any clinging. The senses calm, the mind calms, the body calms. Gently, gently, guiding your attention towards the breath. Gently, being with the moment. The mind and the body relaxing deeper and deeper. Gently. Gently. Imagine at this time there is the mind that observes and the breath, the object. All else, let go, let go, let go. Gently, gently. Gently, when you are ready. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, everyone. We would be going into the Veḷudvāreyya Sutra today. The Veḷudvāreyya Sutra. We have done this sutra before, if you do remember. the Veḻudvāreyya Sutra. It emphasizes on the importance of morality and how the base of morality supports our development in the Dhamma. Now, as we know, Sila Samadhi Prajna, the foundation is Sila. In the Sapta Vishuddhi, we have Sila as the foundation factor there as well. This morality comes to be a factor that is spoken of as a foundation, a stepping stone to allow for the practice to continue and progress within oneself. So the Veḻudvāreyya Sutra speaks on the same regard to the importance of the precepts. Let us go to the sutra. I've shared the link with all of you. Did you have time to read the sutra before coming?
Yes, we did, Bhante.
Ah, that's wonderful.
I couldn't read the whole thing.
Sorry?
I couldn't read the whole thing, but I went on to the start, but I couldn't finish it.
Okay. So,
Yes, Bhante, we read.
lovely. So the Veḻudvāreyya Sutra, it is quite clear, isn't it? It is quite succinct, it is quite clear as well. At a time when the Buddha visits Veḻudvāra, in the Kosala country, with a large community of monks, arrived at the Brahmin village of Veḻudvāra. Velu means bamboo, Dwara is gate. The Brahmin house lords of Veļudvāra heard thus. It is said, sirs, that the recluse Gotama, a Sakya son, who went forth from the Sakya clan, has been wandering in Kosala with a large community of monks and has come to Veļudvāra. Concerning this, Blessed One, the fair report has been spread about. So too, he is the Blessed One, for he is Arahat, fully self-awakened one, itibiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijjacharna sampanno sugato lokavidu anuttaro purusha dhammasarati satta deva manussanam buddho bhagavati. Having realized by his own direct knowledge this world with its gods, its maras, and its brahmas, this generation with its recluses and brahmins, its rulers and people, he makes it known to others. He teaches the Dhamma, good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, both in spirit and in letter. Both in spirit and in letter. What this would mean is when the Dhamma is being spoken, when the Dhamma is being taught, when the Dhamma is being listened to, when the Dhamma is adhered to, when the Dhamma is practiced, in spirit and in letter, the Dhamma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. I think this teaching is immensely helpful in this time that we live in, especially when we are exposed to so many different kinds of teachings. And at times, these teachings with accessibility to YouTube and all of these publishing medias, you find a lot of opinions that float around. And you sometimes wonder, is this true or is this not? Because often these words are often spoken with a lot of passion. And when you, at that time, look at yourself listening to whatever it is that you are listening to, and if it does not seem like you are good in the middle, like you are good in the middle, and that you, or that you are good in the end, if it doesn't seem like it brings peace to the mind, if it doesn't seem to be quenching or suppressing the hindrances, if it doesn't seem to be putting out that fire of greed, hatred, delusion, but rather fanning it, then it is most probably not the Dhamma. It is most probably not the Dhamma. Good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. That is what it means. That in the beginning of that sentence or that word, sentence, that preaching, that Dhamma calms the senses. That Dhamma suppresses the hindrances, brings about discipline, brings about light in both the beginning, middle, and the end, both in spirit and in letter. He proclaims the holy life that is entirely complete and pure. He proclaims the holy life that is entirely complete and pure. It is good indeed to see such arahats talking about the Buddha.
Excuse me, Bhante.
Yes,
What
Ra.
does it mean? Sorry to disturb. Spirit and in the letter. What does it mean, letter?
Letter is in the word.
In the
Right.
writing. Yes.
In the letter, meaning when you take the word that is being said, right? Now, they are not referring to what is written, but
That's it. Right. I was thinking like that.
right? More rather, when you, let us say, when you go through the Dhamma with a comb, like way, and you go through it word by word, even those words will not be offensive in any way. Because why? Those words are written or spoken in a manner to quench or suppress the hindrances, not to create more of it. Hmm?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
spirit and in letter. Spirit
Yeah.
and letter.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Right.
you, Bhante.
Then the Brahmin house lords of Veḷudvāreyya approached the Blessed One. Having approached, some greeted the Blessed One and sat down at one side. Some exchanged greetings with the Blessed One and then sat down at one side. Some, having saluted the Blessed One with lotus palms, sat down at one side. Some announced their name and clan before the Blessed One and then sat down at one side, right? The difference in the congregation. The difference in the congregation. Some kept silent and sat at one side as well. Sitting thus at one side, the Brahmin house lords of Veḷudvāreyya said to the Blessed One, Master Gautama, we have such desires, such wishes, such hopes. May we dwell in a home crowded with children. May we enjoy Kasi, sandalwood. These were the Pradas and the Louis Vuittons of the time, right? The sandalwood, the best of the best sandalwoods that they used to build their homes also at the time, just like the kutis were made. Maybe wear garlands, scents, and makeup. May we enjoy gold and silver. When the body breaks up after death, may we be reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. As we have such desires, such wishes, such hopes, may Master Gautama teach us the Dhamma in such a way that we might dwell in a home crowded with children. We might dwell in a home crowded with children. We might enjoy Kasi sandalwood. We might wear garland scents. So teach, if this is what we want, teach us the Dhamma in a manner that we might be able to enjoy these things that we want to. When the body breaks up after death, may we be reborn in good destination and in heavenly world. I will teach you, house lords, a Dhamma teaching for self-application. Something to do by yourself. Listen, pay attention. I will speak. Yes, sir, the Brahmin house lords of Veḷudvāreyya replied in assent to the Blessed One. The Blessed One said, what house lord is the Dhamma teaching for self-application? The first, respect for life. This is the first precept. Respect for life. Here, house lords, a noble disciple reflects thus. I am one who wishes to live, who does not wish to die, who desires happiness, who dislikes suffering. Since I am one who wishes to live and does not wish to die, who desires happiness and dislikes suffering, if someone were to take my life, that would be neither desirable nor agreeable to me. Now, if I were to take the life of another, of one who wishes to live, who does not wish to die, who desires happiness, who dislikes suffering, that would be neither desirable nor agreeable to him. Now, what is undesirable and disagreeable to me is undesirable and disagreeable to others too. Indeed, what is undesirable and disagreeable to me is undesirable and disagreeable to others too. How can I inflict what is undesirable and disagreeable to me upon another? Having reflected thus, he himself abstains from destroying life. He exhorts others to abstain from destroying life. He speaks in praise of abstaining from destroying life. Thus, his bodily conduct is purified in 3 respects. With the first precept, which is connected to life, the taking of life, which is the virati sila, the abstinence. The first precept is connected to the aspect of happiness that we find here within the sutra. Who wishes to live, who does not wish to die, Just like the Dhammapada that we know, Sabbe tasanti dandassa, Sabbe bhayanti machuno, all who has life, they fear death. They do not want harm to come to one's own life. Hence, we practice the 5 precepts, starting with, of course, the first precept of not bringing harm to another's life, which forms the foundational practice of Sila Samadhi Prajna. The first precept, along with all the rest of the precepts, the 5 precepts, form the foundation of our spiritual lives. The 5 precepts, when we add right livelihood onto the 5 precepts, we come into a position where we now protect the Ajiva Attamaka Sila. The 5 precepts plus right livelihood equals Ajiva Attamaka Sila. Ajiva Attamaka Sila plus right livelihood includes the complete abandoning of intoxicants, right? Ajiva Attamaka Sila plus right livelihood. So then what is right livelihood? In the Ajiva Attamaka Sila, if you see, Suramere is not there. Ajiva Attamaka Sila, Suramere is not there. Right? The drinking of intoxicants is not there. So Ajiva Attamaka Sila, when you practice further, when you bring the meditation, when you practice meditation, and with it, when the Sila becomes far more, let us say, stable and more, how can I say, pronounced from a spiritual aspect of your heart, there the person, the right livelihood gets added on automatically, it says. For example, again, if we talk in regards to the 5 precepts, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and taking of intoxication, when you meditate, when you're with these precepts, when you're on the right path, automatically with the subduing of mind, you will want to bring in the Ajiva Attamaka, Samma Ajiva, right livelihood. What would be the right livelihood to those precepts there? The inclusion of Pisuna Vacha, Parusa Vacha, Sampappalapa, which would then make the Ajiva Attamaka Sila, isn't it? So then one who is on Ajiva Attamaka Sila, that is, they say Ajiva Attamaka Sila is a Sila when one determines to become an Arahat, or wanting to become an Arahat, or wanting to become enlightened, the degree of passion and Shraddha in that person's mind, which gives out that genuine expression of wanting to achieve and attain enlightenment, to let go of passions, would put that person in a state of mind where the person would automatically adhere to the precepts mentioned under the Ajiva Attamaka Sila. So the person wouldn't want to bring harm to any life. The person wouldn't want to steal. The person wouldn't want to commit any sort of verbal misdoings, that is lying, frivolous speech, abusive speech, and empty words. These kinds of intentions don't befall that person's mind, because that person's mind is focused upon a greater goal, which involves letting go of all sankhara, which involves letting go of all of these pernicious hooks that we find ourselves in at that moment of mind, remember. Because we come with Abhidhamma background now, that moment of mind gives us a broader understanding of what that entails. When the mind is focused upon the Dhamma practice, the mind is automatically inclined towards what? This state of sila, right? When one wants to take it. That is where now Ajivattamaka Sila plus, let us say, the right livelihood, after one continues one's practice with it and becomes to feel far more comfortable with it, there the person will let go entirely of intoxication in one's life. Intoxication in one's life. Because why? With the practice, you begin to see these things not as parts and bits of enjoyment, but these things to be just distractions from the path. Distractions from the path. And when one's mind is so taken aback from the reality of what one sees in one's practice, not through just knowledge, but now through the bhavana, which is the most important. There the person begins to experience a sense of nekkhamma, isn't it, everyone? Nekkhamma. And we all know about this nekkhamma because we've all gone through it. At different stages, we've used the Dhamma to let go of certain things. And in dealing with that scenario or that object in that manner, you have also felt the lightness that it could bring when you truly adhere to it, isn't it, everyone? That nekkhamma in practice that we experience, right? That nekkhamma in practice, or for all of those instances to occur, right? The base of that becomes not only in this life, but through our samsaric journey to come into this position that we are in, with the fortunes and the support that we have from our conditions to be able to hear the Dhamma, think the Dhamma, see the Dhamma, maybe even taste the Dhamma. All of that, the Mahasi Sayadaw says, all of that, right? These sutras that we talk about. Now, is there anyone who has not read the sutra? Sujata, you've read parts of it, but anyone who hasn't read the sutra? Mhm. So you have the sutra with you, right? You have the sutra with you. So I hope you do go through the sutra in addition to listening to the talk. But I will be digressing from the sutra to go into the sutra even more today, because we've done the sutra already once before, and I would like to go into some other points that we've not discussed before. So in this sutra, you find it goes into the different types of the sikkhapadas, right? And if you just turn a little bit up here, Piatan has done this wonderful here, right? Let's read this one. However, now this is the first precept, right? Regarding the first precept, which is, we'll start from here. The Buddha, unconditional love. Okay, no, we'll start from here, right? Self-accountability. Love that. Buddhism neither subscribes to the notion that morals are relative or undiscoverable by humans. Remember, in Hinduism, you have the virtues, the great virtues which are unattainable, are only attainable by God himself, right? So that is why it says undiscoverable by humans, right? And even in the Abrahamic religions, we do have that notion there, right? So we do not subscribe to that notion in our practice and philosophy. Nor does it relegate moral accountability to a supreme being. While the former is basically man-centered, the latter is God-centered, right? The latter is God-centered. A man-centered moral ethics serves only humans, and as such can be exploitative of non-human beings in nature. That's so true, isn't it? Human life cannot exist in itself, but is possible on account of the vital yet fragile support of the ecosystem around us. A key principle of Buddhist ethics is respect for our own natural environment. Just skipping over to this bit. A God-centered system tends to attribute good and evil, right and wrong to an external power figure. And since only a believer, one endowed with some kind of power, such as charisma, defines what sort of being this is, such an attribution can be very arbitrary and induce us to be unaccountable for our actions. Very significantly, a theistic system cannot show any real unconditional love, especially when that love must be directed only to an all-powerful being. Life-centeredness. Unconditional love means accepting oneself just as we are and extending that same openness to others and to nature. This is an open acceptance of the true reality around us. Now, some might say, what if who we are is not good, right? I have been asked this question where, if you think that you're inherently not a good person, right, then what does acceptance of oneself entail for oneself? Is it the acceptance of my negative virtues? Is it the acceptance that I am an evil being or an unhappy being or a miserable being? What do you think? How does acceptance apply to such a person?
Because you've got the potential of being divine, that we can all aspire to be that. So therefore you realize that you're not all bad, that you may have some things, but you have the potential if you come.
How do you realize that you're not all bad, Dil?
Well, if you have some knowledge, if you have to follow the teachings, and you know what is kusal and akusal, so when you know that, when you look at your pachavikana, you do self-reflection, and then you see that some things you may be doing right, something partially. But the potential for us, unlike in a theist religion, we have that. If we aspire to that, then we let go, nekama, the other things. We can then, so therefore, in the same way, this is important, because if we accept ourselves, we can accept others who are not all what we with other things. So that this whole thing about accepting other people, the positive, like how we accept ourselves, becomes more reality. That's what we have to aspire to.
Okay.
Otherwise, you have regret, which is a very bad Chetasika chitta, which will then make us attract more and more of things which are negative ones.
Yeah. Anyone else? So Dil gave us a wonderful answer. Anyone else? Another perspective? A different way of looking at it? Right? If someone is to ask that of you? Bhavana පැත්තෙන් පොඩ්ඩක් හිතුවොත්. If you think along the lines of the meditation practice and in the realization that, where that acceptance comes from, how would you envision? Anyone?
Your own conscience will be the best judge, I think.
How can you know for sure?
Because if we are honest to ourselves, my way of thinking, as Bill says, there's a potential for anything.
Yeah. Okay. So if we, so that's good. If we take a look at this is an open acceptance of the true reality around us. So when we observe reality, one of the main ways that we conduct that observation is to guide our attention towards a specific moment, isn't it? In this case, it could also be thinking about one's actions, one's words, one's mind, right? Observing those things. And in observing, let us say, what you find is all of these thoughts being thrown about like canisters, busyness, a lot of different sankharas, restlessness, a fear, a mind full of different things, a mind of full of different things, where there is a sense of unsurety, whether I do want to accept this, whether, am I happy with this to accept it? But when you observe that very moment and tell that person, look, all of those things that you think about yourself as well are distractions. They are like layers of an onion, and you can remove them, those layers. And when you are in the present moment, and as the Buddha beautifully relates to us how we break the Ganasanya from Sammuti to Paramatta, from the conventional reality to ultimate reality, what we show ourselves or what unfolds before us in that process is the fact that there is no true being. In that moment of presence, when everything, all the dialogue disappears, what happens? There is silence. There is peace. There is tranquility. For the first time, everything is quiet. At that moment, that person is now changed to know that this reality is far beyond what you think is just reality at that level initially. But when you see that moment of silence, that moment of peace, where the mind is able to achieve that potential, that awakens or sparks a deeper light in you. That is where the 5 precepts, right, which the very first fact we cannot deny is that we are alive. And no one in his right mind would want to die. We value life, meaning that it is good in itself, but it also has moral purpose. Understandably, Buddhist ethics begins with value of life, expressed through our being. This is the value underpinning the first precept, which is against killing. The principle of true love is to live. Conversely, to live is to love self, others and goodness, and to understand that others too have love and life. This is the golden rule. Simply put, it says, do not do to others what we do not want others to do to us. This principle is described in verse 6 of the Veḻudvāreyya Sutra. However, if we were to stop here, then we would only be only little better than a wild brute
Mhm.
or an obvious fish. We all have to work for a living, or we are supported by others who work for a living through industry and honesty. We earn our life supports. We enjoy happiness expressed through owning and sharing things, and through our ideas and feelings. This is the value of happiness. When such property or idea is disrespected or violated, we are deprived of the source of our happiness. If someone were to take that source of our happiness away, it would bring suffering. When we steal from someone, we are wrongfully and effectively taking away his happiness. Happiness then is the value underpinning the second precept, which is again taking the not given,
Mhm.
right? I think it's written wonderfully to include a more broader aspect than we would usually think about, which is taking, but this taking includes both the material and intellectual property as well. And
Mhm.
let us say, වෙන කෙනෙක්ට අයිති වෙන්න ඕන දෙයක්, something which is deserved by another person, taking that away from that person is also would be, although you cannot say, oh, this is stealing, right? You might not be able to legally say, oh, this is stealing. However,
Yes.
that taking away of that, let us say, that other person's light, right, will dim your light in terms of that return. The freedom. If our happiness is in having things, it is incomplete. Remember, we live in the Kama Loka. In the Kama Loka, the general pull or the way that things work here is through the happiness in having things. A person in Dhamma actively works to cultivate a different stream of happiness away from having things, right? Away from having things. It is incomplete or meaningless if we are unable to actually enjoy them. This
Right.
means that they benefit both our bodies and minds. One of the beneficial ways that we can enjoy what we have is through our healthy bodies. Through our bodies, too, we express our acceptance and love for others. This is a complicated process because we have to be sure that both parties know what they are doing and are willing to share responsibility.
Mhm.
If others violate our bodies, especially when we say no to a relationship, then we are being deprived of our freedom. We have lost control of our bodies, as it were. We should be free to accept or reject any relationship. Hence, the third precept is against sexual misconduct, which is underpinned by the value of freedom, expressed through our action or non-action as dictated by our
Conscience.
conscience and wisdom. Truth. For all these statements to be meaningful and applicable, they have to be true. This is the value of truth. It is a term for right speech, which is free from falsehood, from inciting disharmony, from harshness, and from frivolity. This is again something natural. If there is no truth, then it is of no use for me to write about all of this. You would have wasted your time reading this. Truth is the very basis of wholesome human connection.
Communication.
Communication. This is the value underpinning the fourth precept, which is against communicating falsehood. The three precepts regulate and purify our body, while the fourth keeps our speech wholesome. The fifth precept, refraining from taking intoxicants and addictives, regulates both body and speech. Most importantly, also the mind. For if we are drunk or high with drugs, we are likely to break all the other four precepts and face various social, legal, and health problems too. I mean, whilst we, understand these parts, we also acknowledge that true sila arises from a position of where the person has had a true sense of samvega and viraga towards those specific areas of sensual experience, right? Meaning, whilst a person, let us say, a person might not care whether he acquires a certain object in a right manner or a wrong manner, right? A right manner or a wrong manner. Then there might be a person who might be fearful of acquiring things in a wrongful way, right? Now, both of these beings, when it comes to the consciousness of that moment, should the being be able to see light there? Should there arise some sort of viraga or samvega at that moment? From the very next moment itself, sila can be present. Sila can be present. When we come down to the meditative teachings, the teachings on the vipassana and the practice, the Buddha teaches us the types of transgressions, moral transgressions that affects our practice, for sure. For sure. Now let us say, if a layperson is to, let us say, transgress the Panchasila, the Panchasila, the layperson will break the rule, there is a transgression, and there will be no further transgressions after. That means the sila is broken, right? Meaning a layperson who is on the path directly falls away from the path at that moment, right? Because he is not in an order of any sort, right? It is completely your own intention, volition, and action, right? But when, let us say, a monk entails an offense, let us say a monk is to receive or gains a privilege or support by wrongful means, acquired through wrongful means. For a monk, the offense is incurred at transgression, and then every moment of use, there's a transgression as well. So let us say, and there's a story where a monk picks up a mango right, that is not offered to him, eats it, right, throws it away, and in time this mango seed, right, he eats the flesh and throws away the seed, and this seed grows, right, this seed grows, and the seed is now a tree, right? Now he's enjoying the shade of the tree. He's enjoying the shade of the tree. And the Vinaya says, every moment that he enjoys that shade, he's incurring a wrong offense. You right? Every moment that you enjoy that shade, you're incurring a wrong offense, dukkata, right? Of which makes it so difficult. Which makes it so difficult now. If you take, that same thing into consideration. Now, let us say, within the Aranyas, let us say, because they try to keep to the virtues so strongly, so well with the moral code, not strongly, but this is the basis. Um, um, the Aranya monks would believe that going into a temple where the monk has developed the temple while touching money, right, is all unallowable. Right? Is all unallowable. Right? Now, this is a very funny story. Right? This is a very funny story. And while I was in Sri Lanka with a group of monks, we were traveling around. And there was this occasion that we had to go to a temple, right? A temple, a pansala, for some odd reason, I can't remember. And one of the monks, right, he didn't want to get down, but he got down in the end. And when he was getting back into the van, right, he was hopping, right? He was hopping. He wasn't walking. He was kind of like hopping, like taking long steps
Strides.
to reduce the amount of steps. And it was quite weird to me because, why did he do that? So I asked, we kind of laughed about it, but asked, what are you doing? Right? And the monk said, no, I'm walking in a temple, so every step is a apatti. So I'm reducing my apattis, right? So I'm reducing my apattis, right? This is because now let us say, if you bring, temples have sand, isn't it? And you have to fill the sand. If the monk pays for it, you can't walk on that sand. You can't walk on that sand, right? And to that some of the Aranya monks try to keep that, of course. Then we understand now with the times, that it would be very difficult to go along things that way. But that is the rule. That is the Buddha Vinaya, which is, if it was gained, see how pure the Buddha is. I mean, when you really understand where it comes from, what the Buddha is saying is, if you took it in the wrong way, none of us wants it. If you took it in the wrong way, none of us want it. The whole Sangha cannot make use of that. Why? To reduce abuse, to take away any form of pleasure that could come through a wrong manner into that pure life, that purity of mind, not to have that defilement hindering and disturbing the practice. In such ways, the morality or the sila aspect, it gives you strength. It is like a shear around your body that is like a protective layer for the mind and the body. And the body. In having such a sila, and yet, let us say, you do not prosper in the practice. Having such a sila, pure sila, you do not prosper in the practice. What could be the reason? Right? The Buddha outlines 5 reasons that hinder spiritual growth. The first is what? Kamma antaraya. The dangers brought about by karma. What is this, everyone? These are the karmas of the, let us say, the panchanantariya karmas, the heinous crimes, killing one's mother, killing matricide, patricide, attempting to bring harm to the life of a Buddha, causing harm to the life of an arahat, an enlightened being, falsely claiming exalted states, right, which will come separately actually, right? So these heinous crimes, karma, because why? When these specific karmas are done, what happens is your very next birth or your life right now itself will turn into misery in some way or another. But surely upon death, a woeful result will come along. Hence, your continuity of practice is then affected for a long time. And who knows the type of mind you will have at the end of that suffering, right? Hence, they call it kamma antaraya, the danger brought about by karma. Danger to what? Danger to one's own practice. Hence, the 5 precepts, everyone, causes or brings about stability into our life right now with good, long health for the practice. For you to, let us say, for you to identify that life is suffering, you did not come out of the womb and then decide, no. No, we went through life, we went through suffering of our own, we stumbled upon different doctrines, right? And we come to sort of relate to this doctrine for whatever reason, right? For whatever reason, all causes and conditions. Those causes and conditions are built up on positive states, conditions that have propped you to this moment. Propped you to this moment. If you think that this is your doing entirely, yes and no. The doing of things around you, people around you, instances, other karmas, all of these things affect. The first is kamma antaraya. Kamma antaraya. When it comes, the second one is wrong view, everyone. Wrong view. What is wrong view? Kilesa antaraya. Kilesa antaraya. When it comes to special blessed things that we do, sometimes kileshas comes up. And because of these kileshas, are the good thing that we may be undertaken, that we have undertaken might become very sour, right? Very sour. However, this is not just referring to that kind of occasion. This type of wrong view, kilesha antaraya, refers to akiriya ditti. What is akiriya ditti? Akiriya ditti. Akiriya ditti. What is akiriya ditti? Have you heard of akiriya ditti?
First time I'm hearing it.
Huh?
First time that I'm hearing it.
Akiriya ditti is the belief, the view that there is nothing called good and evil. Akiriyavada කියලා කියන්නේ. Akiriyavadaya. Huh? There is no good, there is no evil. Right? The view that these actions that are done, right? That these actions that are done, that they are not a part of, they do not become good or evil. They are not a part and they do not lead to good or evil results. Akkiriya ditti, akkiriyavada. right? This is neither good nor evil, nor does it bring about good or evil results. Akkiriya ditti. Do you understand Akkiriya ditti? Right? Now, everyone, when you think about how these dittis come about, these dittis can come about conditioned by a plethora of different ways. That is where the Buddha says the precepts, it's your protection and guide. When you are truthful, you come to hear truth, right? When you are respecting of life, you come to be with people who are respecting of life, right? These things protect you. Your community protects you, right? Your environment protects you. The things that you hear protects you. In that way, the world, the conditions that you hear, smell, feel, taste, see, feel, all of these things are molded through these conditions. What are these conditions caused by? Energy, karmas, right? This is not to say that you did all of this. No. The reasons for what is happening right now was done by a person you neither know nor remember. And what you are doing now is going to condition a being's life in the future. Upon your death, and maybe multiple rebirths, the conditions that we are doing today will surely, sadhu, sadhu, hopefully the Dhamma aspect will give rise into right? Will give rise to, yeah.
Good things in the future. Good things in the future.
Bante, we are so lucky to have you as
Oh,
our
then
teacher.
පටන් ගත්තා. Back to the sutra.
නෑ.
Back to the
දැන්
sutra.
බන්ති ඒක කියන්න ඕනේ නෑ. ඇත්ත කියන්න ඕනේ.
මේ
ශ්‍රද්ධාව වැඩි වෙනකොට කියවෙනවා.
විදිහටම කියවෙනවා අපිට.
the first one out of this is this Akkiriya Ditti. Akkiriya Ditti, this wrong view, hinders your understanding of enlightenment. The second, what is the second type of Ditti that they are referring to? The second kind of Ditti is what? Nashtika Ditti. What is Nashtika Ditti? Nashtika Vadaya. Nastika. Nattika. Nattika Ditti. Nashtika Ditti කියලා සිංහලෙන් කියනවා. Nashtika Vadaya. Nashtika is everything. Nashtika means everything is exhausted after it arises and ceases. That means that nothing will have an effect upon, right, its end. So even after death, there is no rebirth. Everything comes to an end after its demise. It has no karmic residue which gives about a vipaka. Hence, what will happen with Nashtika Ditti is you will not be proliferating or, let us say understanding the anicca dukkha anatma relating to past, present, future. Past, present, future, you will not see. Why? Because you do not think that this has anything to do with the next moment. No conditionality. When there is no conditionality, how can you see anatma? No anatma. You are not having the conditions to see that anatma. That is called Nashtika Ditti. That is how the second way, that wrong view, hinders your spiritual attainment. Your spiritual attainment. The third one is Ahetuka Ditti. Ahetuka Ditti, rootless view. What is rootless? Meaning that whatever that arises, whatever volitions that arises do not produce good or bad results. Ahetukai. Right? Does not produce results. that whatever good or bad that is done does not produce any results. Right? Good or bad results. Right? That good and happiness, happiness and bad, pleasant and unpleasant, arises and ceases without a cause. Ahetukai. Without a cause. These sorts of views are pernicious to the spiritual path. Right? Why? Because it hinders vipassana. Why does it hinder vipassana? Because your view is against what is reality. And because the view is strong, what happens? Reality will not unfold in your vipassana because of the strong inference of ditti. Strong inference of ditti. The third is when you are born with a deficiency.
Fourth,
Third, born with a deficiency. That is, dvihetuka and ekahetuka puggalas. This is called vipaka antaraya. Vipaka antaraya. Kamma antaraya, kilesa antaraya, vipaka antaraya. The danger that could be brought about by results. What are those dangers? Dvihetuka and ahetuka rebirths, which means that you have passed with a very low state of mind, everyone. These beings can go on to the divine realms after. However, they cannot attain in this birth. But they can go to divine realms afterwards and attain them, depending on the good kusala that they do. Right? On the good kusala that they do. Kamma antaraya, kilesa antaraya, vipaka antaraya, and Arya upavada antaraya. Arya upavada antaraya. Arya upavada antaraya is one cannot achieve attainment when Arya upavada antaraya. Arya upavada antaraya is when you, what's the word that we can use? When you disrespect, ill-treat a arahat. A arahat. Right? Arya. Arya upavad. Upavad is disrespecting. Right? Disrespecting. Insulting a noble one. Here, the noble one is a teacher. Right? A noble one is a teacher. A arahat would naturally be a teacher to a vipassana practitioner. Insulting that pure being is going to result in you not being able to progress in your meditation, because you're insulting the place that you're getting the teachings and the embodiment of teachings, right? Embodiment of teachings. Hence, hence the right conditions will not come about for your flourishing in the practice. For your flourishing in the practice. Now, even with teachers, the same thing, where you're getting the Dhamma, right? Where you're getting the Dhamma, it is the same thing, everyone. There are teachers of mine who, because they have given me the Dhamma, whatever that they have done to me, let us say, in some sort of negative manner, however much unfair you might feel it is, when you have that respect for Dhamma, you will not want to do anything. Because, in the Buddha says, receiving this Dhamma and going through anything to receive it, right? Meaning hardships and difficulties, in comparison to the length of samsara, it is better to do so rather than otherwise, because that Dhamma will help you escape the horrifying cycle of rebirth and death, where we are constantly abused, constantly used, constantly opposed by these Dhammatas, right? So, Arya Upavada Ditti, right? Arya Upavada is that Antaraya, is that other reason where that path and fruition will not come about. Path and fruition does not come about, right? And we know for path and fruition to come about, it is all down to the right conditions of the eightfold path, everyone, right? Eightfold path. Then මෙවගේ දෙයක් කරාම, when and if this has happened, how do you come out of it is also important. It says genuinely asking for forgiveness, right? Genuinely asking for forgiveness brings such a great sense of relief to that person's life, right? For that person's life. Now, for example, in the Sangha, let us say you do a horrible thing, right? And when you are pulled up for it in front of the Sangha, the Sangha can go to a lot of stages in order to punish you. But the moment that you would apologize, it stops, right? It stops. The Sangha cannot go any further. When you apologize, then let us say a mandatory penance is issued. For 2 weeks, you will be going through suspension. Let us say Abbana Manata and such, right? For the bhikkhunis, these things are very difficult, everyone. Now, for example, for the monks, your punishment would entail any monk who enters into the monastery boundary, you have to go and confess, I have done this, I have done this, I have done this. Right? Right? Very difficult. However, for the women, it was even more difficult for the bhikkhunis. For the bhikkhunis, if the bhikkhunis were to do something wrong and they are undergoing a period of suspension, let us say, this period they will have to guard the whole boundary of the city that they are in, the village, or that whole boundary. Let us say they're in a town, they have to manage that whole town. Let us say they're in a village, they have to seek the boundary of that whole village. Meaning, if any bhikkhu or bhikkhuni enters into this boundary and they don't know and they leave, their punishment is not spent. Do you understand? Right? How difficult it is. To that extent, now, for example, let us say a bhikkhu becomes parajika. Okay. Now, let us say a bhikkhu becomes parajika, right? And he tells a monk, right? And let us say the monk tells, okay, you have to go and, tell the others, blah, 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 whatever. Now, let us say a bhikkhuni, right? A bhikkhuni becomes parajika, tells a sister bhikkhuni, right? And for whatever reason, the sister bhikkhuni, let us say because she's her friend, hides it. That bhikkhuni is also parajika. That bhikkhuni is also parajika.
Bhante, I have a question.
Yeah.
Why are they so harsh upon the women?
Because
Yes.
because the Buddha, he, you can't ask me this question in the 21st century.
Because bhikkhunis were not given.
No,
No.
it was, it is not. It is very easy to suspect. Look at this and obviously think, okay, it was not equal. But the Buddha was not working on the same sort of, let us say, position of equality, but he was looking at need, right? Need for training and practice, right? Need for training and practice. And in those situations, right, at the time, the Buddha would always see the levels of kilesha, right? The levels of kilesha. And with these levels of kilesha, he would promulgate the rules accordingly, right? Now, none of these promulgations that we have are things that did not happen. Rules have only been promulgated over things that happened, not things that didn't happen, right? Hence, the Buddha talking about or promulgating these rules, it was according to the nivarana, the hindrances. May mattamata, right, to this extent, right, the Buddha tried to get rid of the areas that kileshas could impregnate, let us say, the sasana, the sangha, right? Cutting all of those areas. And when we are in a full monastic setting, we see the vibrance and beauty of these Vinaya rules. We see the practicalities of these Vinaya rules. We see the essential nature of these Vinaya rules. But of course, the Vinaya rules, their beauty shines brighter the more that you meditate. You are at peace and you are in touch with your present moment, right? Your present moment. So these things have been taught, let us say, the Buddha, Mahaprajapati Gautami, all of them were in the sasana as well, including the Buddha's own former wife, Yashodhara, right? Going through this is not in any way painted in a way that there was no equality. There was equality. But equality does not mean that the same medicine that is good for you is good for me. The medicine that is good for me might not be good for you.
Okay.
Ne?
Understood. Oh.
Ehinda. Now, for example, there are 5 types of pandakas, eunuchs. Hari, 5 types of eunuchs. Now, there is a type of eunuch, right? I don't know whether this is a polite word to use, but this is the translation, pandaka. There's a type of, let us say, a person. Towards the full moon, the lust of this person increases. The lust of this person increases towards the full moon. There comes a question. Should such a person be allowed into the Sangha? The Buddha says, right? Insatiable lust occurs within this person towards a full moon, right? The Buddha says, this person can only be admitted into the Sangha if he has a close teacher. The teacher of such a student should be with him throughout the day, making sure that he does not transgress and keeps to his practice. Should this student not have such a teacher, he should not be admitted to the Sangha. That means, ඒ වගකීම ගන්න බැරි නම් ගන්න එපා. If you can't take that responsibility of caring for this person with this affliction, don't take over the responsibility. Only if there is a student. So you can see the karuna there. Right? Karuna there. Then the Buddha speaks about other, let us say, deviant behavior,
Mhm.
right? Lustful deviant behavior. What does the Buddha say? Close teachers. If no close teachers, do not admit. Why? Because they will transgress, right? So a teacher who is like a hawk, like a parent, closely observing, being with this student, caring for this student. If such a teacher is not there, do not admit, right? Do not admit. The last thing the antaraya that would um, keep one from development is anavitikkama antaraya. Anavitikkama antaraya refers to a monk or a trainee who constantly breaks the monastic code. Such a person will not be able to access the Maggapala,
Mhm.
path and fruition,
Yes.
right? Path and fruition. Why? Because of the constant breaking of the rules, right? Because the constant breaking of the rules comes from somewhere, the lack of Shraddha. The other difficulties, disturbances in the mind. And when you're within that order, it is different from the lay people, where the lay people do not incur an offense of wrongdoing after one breakage, but the Sangha would. Hence, that would affect their progression into the higher sealers or the Maggapala. The Maggapala. In these situations where the sealer, one within this present moment, is able to come into a moment of presence and letting go through the nekkhamma. Wherever they say sati, right? Meditation, mindfulness upon the present, there is the enforcing or the presence of that samma, the right aspect there.
Aspect. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Whenever there is sati,
Mm.
sati, mindfulness over the present moment. When there is mindfulness upon the present moment, there we come into positions where if one believes that the past is no more, the present and anything to do with the present has not yet arisen, but we are in this, future has not arisen, but we are in this present moment. And in this present moment, if through view he is pure,
Yeah.
there arises the purity of virtue.
Mm.
There arises the purity of virtue. Let us think, everyone, when we go to, let us say, Silganda,
Mm.
right? පොය දවසට පන්සල් ගියාම, right? When you're seated or before you're seated for meditation, or let us say an occasion where you are so deeply touched by that moment, let us say, for whatever reason, let it be something that you heard, Dhamma that you experienced, whatever reason. And at that moment, when that Chetana arises in your mind, I am going to give my 100% to this. I do not want to commit all of these other things, specifically. I am going to let go. At that time, you have Sila.
Mm.
At that time. And from that time onwards, you will have Sila. But the moment, let us say, if that thought isn't powerful, or if your hindrances, distractions are so much so that your mind takes advantage to remind you of all the different ways that you are impure, what you have to note there is that mind. That mind is a hindrance. Do you understand?
Yes. Sir.
That mind is a hindrance. That mind has to be seen as impermanent suffering and non-self. It is in that moment or in that position of being that we are able to come into a state of purity owing to our, let us say, our subdued state of mind, our restraint, which we will go into next week. All right, everyone. So let us stop the class for today. Do we have any questions before we wrap up? All right.
Wonderful explanation.
All
And
right.
Tedwan
We
Sanai.
will carry on.
Thank you, Bante
Tedwan
Tedwan
Sanai.
Sanai.
Tedwan Sanai.
Tirwan Sanai Bante.
Tirwan
Tedwan
Sanai.
Sanai.